Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, this podcast is for you. Recruiting is a battlefield where the rules keep changing and the chaos never stops. As the world shifted to remote work, real connection and unfiltered learning have never been more urgent. This isn't just a podcast, it's your survival guide. Welcome to the revolution, your digital bullpen. Rich Thompson, welcome to the digital bullpen.
Rich.
We are so excited to have you on today.
Yes.
Let's go.
Guys, I got to tell you, first off, you're going to have some fun conversations today, and I'm super excited for our guests. But again, if you like what you hear, don't forget to smash that like button, something Myrna will never say, and share it. Again, this is a community, and the whole goal is to bring our community to every people. So today we're talking to someone who has, I think, seen it all, if I could say it. And he's led at the very top of the game, Rich Thompson. He's over 30 years in the industry. He's been a driving force of the world recruiting and leadership. And a fun fact is he was actually my trainer when I was a young little 5-year-old in Cincinnati when I was a rookie in the business for our HIT training. And then since then, his career is nothing short of extraordinary. He's worked his way up to become the CHRO of that very company, Global, the Adecco Global Group. Founded his own company that specializes in recruiting in the recruitment industry. He's got some fantastic players on that team. Now you're the CHRO of Medical Solutions, diving into that. And if that wasn't impressive enough, he decided at one point to author this book, Relentless, and which we will get into, but really an awesome book that dives into performance, relationships, and then lessons in sport, right? Using sport to, because I know, Rich, you've got some
He's a
football
sports
in
guy.
you, I think. There's some football in your background, like a kicker, I believe, as I understand it.
Yeah.
So, again, whether it's leading teams, building strategies, or just conflict, you've really done everything with authenticity and grit. And you really have a passion for connecting people, which I think is why we're obviously still connected. So, Rich, let's grab a cup of whatever you guys want to drink and dive in. This is so good to have you, Rich. God, thanks for being on the show.
Yes, thank you, Rich.
Hey guys, I mean, clearly it's a very shallow talent pool around the holiday season because you've got me on your podcast, but I'll do my best. No, listen, one of the great one of the great things about the career that I've had that's almost 30 years, Paul.
Okay,
Like
sorry.
30,
Oh,
1995.
geez, come on, Paul.
1995, right?
Yeah. Is getting the opportunity to watch people grow and go. And it's just fun to see what people turn into and turn out to do and where their destiny, starts to show up. And so to be able to stay connected with the two of you guys has been a real blessing, even if it's from afar. So thanks for having me on.
So happy. I'm going to dive right in. So we're going to get to the book. But okay, So for 29 years, not 30, you started in Robert Half as a staffing manager, grinding out the phone, dialing for dollars. This is before LinkedIn. I think we were faxing resumes, probably. Maybe we had fax machines. So. And now you've come from that to leading the charge in some of the world's largest and most impressive staffing firms. So tell us who convinced you to stay in this crazy career? Because somebody duped you into it and now you're in it, 29 years later. Tell us about your journey.
Well, so look, it's funny. I remember I was selling nails and screws and particle board and plywood, which is hilarious because I'm the least handy person ever. Right. But when I got released, and I'll talk about that here a little bit later, but when I got released from Green Bay, I was a history degree. I had no idea what was happening. I just needed to make money. And my first job was selling cell phones as a temp in a kiosk in a mall in St. Charles, Illinois, making $10 an hour through the holiday season, but just trying to make it work.
That's pretty good.
And then I moved over into nails and screws and all of this stuff. I sold to hardware stores and cabinet makers in Southern Illinois, or excuse me, in Southern Wisconsin and Western Illinois. And it was fine. I mean, I mean, I was having success with it, but it just wasn't, there was no passion for me there. And I found the staffing industry and I didn't even know what it was. I went for an interview for office team
Yeah.
in downtown
Yes.
Chicago. And all I heard was if you're tough and if you're strong, this is a big enough company you can grow. And that's all I heard. I took a pay cut, right?
Yeah.
And I just wanted growth and I wanted opportunity and I wanted to lead or coach people more than anything else. And again, that leans on my sporting back or my sports background. But I mean, this was back at a recession, and we were placing file clerks and data entry clerks and really light lower level administrative professionals
Yeah.
in a recession in downtown Chicago. I was given a phone book, a phone, and 3 zip codes, and it's like,
Yeah,
here's the
go.
Sounds
desk
about
that the
right.
five,
Yeah.
yep. It's like here's the desks that the five, or here's the desk that the five people ahead of you couldn't do, and here are their zip codes. And if you're here in 6 months, we'll train you, right?
Oh
And so
gosh.
you just got the crap kicked out of you, and I just
Yeah.
loved it, and I loved the chase,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I just felt like it was the competitiveness of trying to win people. And Paul, look, no computers. This was a
Yeah.
file cabinet system, and you're just
Yeah.
like you had in your network, you had about 50 temps, that you tried to get to know, and
Yeah.
they would work one day jobs to, a couple of week jobs, and it was just burning through it. Now, I will say the good fortune that I had was I got to office, or I was no office, it was cube, but you could touch 3 people sitting at your desk, by the
Sure.
way. That's how close we
Yeah.
Yeah.
were. But I was right next to Margaret Rosen, and she was the number one gross margin biller in the company. And she was an animal, and she was mean, and she was nasty. And I remember I went over to her early days, and I said, "Hey, I hear you're pretty good. Do you mind if I sit and just listen to some calls?" And she's like, "Get away from me. You're not going to stay here long enough to make a difference. So just leave me alone." And so, like 2 weeks later, I walked up to her. I said, "Me and you, toe to toe. I'll beat you on any metric you want." which I which I didn't. But it's
She was
just
probably impressed that you did that. Yeah.
yeah, but I just loved it. I loved the pursuit. I loved
Yeah.
the grit. I loved winning people. And that was really what kind of drove me. I never for a moment thought that I was going to do anything potentially different or more, or I didn't aspire for other stuff other
Mhm.
than I just wanted to be the best
Yeah.
and I wanted to grow. And that was it. It was amazing.
Yeah. And which is, I mean, I think that is the attitude that makes people successful, right?
Yeah.
It's that competitive, and there's healthy competition in staffing, right?
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
that healthy
Yeah.
camaraderie, like I beat you, you got me next time, and that's what keeps us growing. But so then you're obviously successful, and then you go into training and then HR. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
how did you transcend into that? I mean, because I think it's important for people to hear that it's not just talking to people. You could actually go into like the training and development, leadership and development, and then HR. So tell me about how that kind of where you branched off there.
Yeah, so I'll pause and say that
Yeah.
Margaret is a great friend of mine. We still keep in touch.
Of
And
course.
those were great days, and we
Yes.
learned a lot from each other. It was
Yes.
amazing.
That's
Yes.
awesome.
So I'm at office team. I get promoted after about 6 months. I pick up a division. I'm out in Hoffman Estates in the western suburbs of Chicago. I do that for about a year, and then I got recruited over to the company that's called Accountants on Call at the
Oh,
time.
yes.
That then
Where I
became
started. Yeah.
AOC, that then
Yeah.
Mhm.
became Agilon, and now it's LHH.
Yeah.
And I opened up a branch in Schaumburg, Illinois, for Accountants on Call, and it just was again we just continued the grind, right? We kept it
Okay.
going. I moved from Chicago to got promoted, moved to Houston, picked up a couple of branches for the company. Opened up another branch in northern Houston, and again, just kind of doing my thing, trying to surround myself with people that wanted to grind with me, that wanted to win with
Mhm.
me, and wanted to
Yeah.
run at a fast pace and grow. And I was really lucky in finding that. And then I moved to St. Louis and picked up a bigger region. So at some point, I was running 16, 17 branches. I was on a plane
Well,
every week.
yeah.
It was a tough travel. But I was approached by then Ed Blust, who is still a friend and
Yes.
a
Yes.
colleague. And he's like, "Hey, do you want to build training?" because it's all, kind of decentralized. It's all over the place. And I said, absolutely not. I love being, I don't like being a cost center. I prefer being a profit center.
Right.
Yes.
But if you're interested in it, then yeah, let's do it. And so we sat down in Dallas, Texas, in a booth at a cafe next to Mark Cuban. Mark didn't contribute; he just was there. And then we just crafted out the future of training for the company. And I
Yeah.
knew that right away that what I wanted is I wanted to surround myself with people who made the sausage, right? Who've been on a
Yeah.
desk.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to talk David Adams to join me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And David and I started with post-it notes. I mean, it was like, let's just go. What does it all mean? What does it all look like? What are the key moments of truth?
Yeah.
How are those good? Why are they hard? And that just led this whole, again, unintended path into this talent management space
Yeah.
that, where we built all of the training, and we enhanced all of the temp training, we enhanced the perm training, we built
Yeah.
manager training across all of the brands. And I mean, it was incredible. And it was just
Oh,
it was
huge.
in a weird kind of circle, is it landed me in the spot that I really wanted to begin being at, which was coaching and developing people from the very
Yeah.
beginning, guys. My passion is the growth of others
Yeah.
and the success that they achieve. If
Yeah.
I can help them, it's amazing. And that's really
Yeah.
what that, kind of that L&D and the talent management space,
Yeah.
brought me.
Yeah.
And so, again, you need a lot of good fortune and you need a lot of good people in your life. And that led me to, the president of Agilon at the time was Neil Leibovitz, who is still around.
Candidates are
Yeah.
your
And
panacea. Yeah.
yeah, and Neil was the guy that really let me run and let me do well in training, and kind of gave me the autonomy to go build things the way I felt like it needed to be. And he gets promoted and now becomes the global head of the finance and accounting placement vertical for Adecco Group
Yeah.
globally. And so that then led me to, training over in Europe, 2 or 3 times a year,
Yeah.
training English speaking branch managers. And again, another very difficult job in a very different way.
Yeah.
But I just love the challenge of it. And so that led me over to Zurich. Lived in Zurich for 3 years as the global head of talent, responsible for leadership development and L&D and some culture programs. And then I came back into the U.S. as
Yeah.
HR. So
So
I
awesome.
have been very, very fortunate to have, in my almost 30 years, 3 different tracks, right? So
Yeah.
out in the business, talent management, and HR, and very, kind of atypical, but I'm so fortunate for it.
No, and I think that speaks volumes because I've experienced that, I took a step back a while back and said, what do I want to do? And it's funny because it's the skills that you gain are so transferable. And I love how you continue to build on them. And I think it's a testament to the staffing industry is it's a career. Like it is absolutely a
Yeah.
long-term career. It's not
Absolutely.
just one job, it's 30 jobs. And so
Yeah.
I freaking love that. And I mean, you gave me my train, like my love for training. I think I still use some of were you the one that used to clap if you hear me once, clap if you hear me twice? Yeah, I used
Yeah.
that literally last week in a training and I picked it up from my little toy. But I mean, it's just the way you guys trained and the way you guys actually hired people, I think was inspirational for me. And, I owe a lot to you and David Adams as well to that, because it really gave me that basis that helped me succeed. And like you, I just want to see people grow and succeed. That's kind of
Yeah.
that's my guilty pleasure is seeing them grow, right?
Yeah. It's the best. It's
I
the
love
best.
it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love
for
it.
sure.
I
I
love it.
had a chance to go out to Cincinnati, and it was you, it was
Yes.
David Adams. I want to say maybe even John Schaefer was part
Yeah,
of
sure. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
trip. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did where we were like across from each other and we had those phone banks maybe, and they were
That's right.
recording the
Yeah.
calls.
Yeah.
And I just remember later hearing like, oh my God, Robin Baumgartner is gonna hear my call. But I remember like passing and being like, oh my God, thank God. I can't believe I
Yeah.
made it through that. It just was,
Yeah.
I think I was probably only 24 and
Yeah.
this was like my first real job and going to like a training, flown by the company. I was just like in a whole
Yeah.
new, world. So thank you for being part of like
For
my
sure.
journey, my work. And I remember leaving that training being like, that is such a cool
Oh
job
yeah.
to be part of, to be able to work with so many and help so many. And, I was able to kind of do it myself as well. And that was
Yeah.
probably one of my favorite jobs I think I ever did. So
Yeah.
thank you, Rich.
No, it's
But
awesome.
we're here to talk about the book. We want to hear
Okay.
about you and the book. So tell us about the book Relentless. Such good stuff in there. I personally like dabbled into a lot of the coaching and mentorship area, but what really pushed you to write this book? What was the inspiration? Like,
Hmm.
why? Why do this
Yeah.
book?
Yeah, so look, I'll tell you, one of the very first days in Zurich. So I'm an American with a family, and I'm living in Zurich, and I'm just trying to figure it all out. I'm in the office, and the global CEO calls me down to his office. It's like the first week or second week, and Patrick, who is amazing, probably the best, and he's like, he shows me a video of a set of focus groups of candidates, and they're talking horribly about staffing agencies, just bad follow up and all the stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, kind of hurtful, made you feel kind of dirty, as you're
Yeah.
Yeah.
watching it.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Welcome to Zurich, fix it," right?
Oh my
Right, which is kind of like
God.
that's kind of like Patrick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we set off. I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna go, and I'm a team of two, right? And so we have a 60-foot or a 60 country footprint, 35,000 employees, 900,000 working temps a day. I mean, how hard could that be?
Oh,
Right.
see, simple. Where to start?
So I start off with, kind of on this like path to like the most amazing PowerPoint deck you've ever seen. That's just going to fix all the customer service. And as part of that, he's like, we need to fix service. We need to unify delivery. We need some consistency on, kind of the touch and feel culture. He's like, and I also need to know who the leaders are in the organization, right? And so I need to know, who's at the level that could do more, who's at the level that's great, and then who's growing, kind of early in career that who could be good. And because I'm like, I need to know who they are, and I need access to them. So, I just, as I'm working on all these programs, I set out and I traveled all over the world. And it was really cool because it was more than just a social cultural experiment. It was really a cultural experiment from a professional perspective because the staffing industry is super local. It
Mhm.
is only, as good as people that are in the locale and how well they
Hmm.
deliver it. So I'm traveling to different countries. And guys, listen, I'm a knucklehead from Oklahoma. You know what I mean? I grew up thinking the end of the world was Tulsa. You know what I mean? And and
Yeah.
and high society was like Red Lobster. You know what I mean? It's like
Yep.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah.
that
The
That
was
was
it.
your
Sizzler.
world. That was your
That was
world.
it.
Yeah.
I find myself now at executive tables across the world with executive teams,
Mm,
and it just gave me this peek into how leaders are different. And
mm,
Mhm.
I started paying attention to, what are the words are they saying? How are they reporting? What's most important to them? How do they engage? How do they reprimand? How do they define success? And it just dawned on me that as I'm traveling, all over and I'm comparing notes, that many of the characteristics and many of the behaviors that I found to be the top of the top were the same as my football coaches at the
yeah.
University of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that was the moment that kind of dawned on me that there absolutely is some version of a correlation
Yeah.
between athletics that is super pure around culture and performance
Hmm.
and really communication because it's kind of unfiltered,
Yeah.
and the professional world that's trying to achieve same things, but it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And so just over the years, I've taken notes, and I've I've got stories and examples of things that are working and things that aren't working, and we just tried to put it together, in a book that that would resonate,
Yeah.
and would be, easy to understand.
Yeah. Well, I love it. I mean, sorry, go ahead, Mira.
No, I was just going to say when you were talking about the different managers, it made
Yeah.
me think of your depth chart that you talked about. Paul and I
Yeah,
were talking about it
Yeah.
beforehand. It's like the strengths, the weaknesses,
Hmm.
potential. And I think that's kind of what you were describing really is like the depth charts within the leadership, within the
yeah,
divisions.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and I talk about it in the book, and there is a thing, right? There is a depth chart,
Hmm.
and but again, I talk about the purity of sport, right? In
Yeah.
sport, you know your role, and what your title. You have a number, you know your role, you know the expectations, and you know exactly where you sit at all times. Those are the three
Yeah.
things that I always preach.
Yep.
It's everybody ought to know their job description and what are the
Hmm.
expectations behind them. How
Yes.
are they performing in real time behind those? And what are the two or three things that they need to focus on to develop in
Hmm.
order to achieve better than they
Yeah.
are where they are today? And in athletics and like in football, if you ever thought, hey, listen, I'm a little bit confused. I don't know where I sit. Am I a starter? Am I a backup? Am I a third string? I don't know. They'll bring you into the room and there's a curtain and they'll pull the curtain. Okay. And it's like, there you are. And if you're third string, you're like, hey, well, what the heck? I'm much
Yeah.
better than that. So
Yeah.
then they'll go over to the file and they'll pull out, your grades from every time you're on the field
Hmm.
in a football game. And if you have questions beyond that, they'll pull out your grades and your film from practice, right? And if you have any questions beyond that, just go read the newspaper. They'll tell you if you're any good or not, right?
Sure.
But it's
Yeah.
just that purity around what is expected of you, what should you be doing, and how you're doing it in real time. That is just,
Yeah.
I think it's phenomenal in sports
Yeah.
that some of the best companies are able to do it to
Hmm.
some degree.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said for that level of like accountability, right? That you put into somebody. And I think in sports, it's like you know what you're accountable for. It is very
Yeah,
clear
Yeah.
what you're accountable for. And in businesses where their people know what they're accountable for and are held to it, they usually are the most successful and actually achieve their goals more
Yeah.
consistently because there's that communication. And so
and
I
Paul,
want
I
to,
and Paul, I
yeah,
think to that point, just to cut you
yeah,
off,
no, cut me
is
off.
that if that's a question on a quiz, everyone gets that answer right,
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
right? But the execution of that is so
Yes.
rare,
Yeah.
right? Because first of all, you have to have enough confidence as a leader,
Hmm.
right? That you need the confidence to be able to deliver,
Yes.
a courageous and a clear message and hold people
Hmm.
accountable to it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
hard.
That's
It is
that book,
very hard.
the four disciplines of execution, right? The WIG, the wildly important goal. And the number one thing companies do is plan. And then the worst thing, they never execute, right? They have all these
Yeah.
Yeah,
great plans, but their execution usually is in the trash. And so
right.
yep. So I guess I really kind of resonated with the section on courage and
Yep.
talking about because courage and leadership is some leaders think courage is being a hard ass, right? And just
Sure.
being like, lead by the stick and not the carrot. And some people think that's courage, but I think there's some depth that I love that you go into and really talking about what is managerial courage, right? And like some of the ideas of like even employees that, there's what you want to say, what you actually say, and then what people
Yeah.
hear, right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so I love that you talk about using scripts and replacing like furious with curious, but then also like, just some of the, and you have to have some examples where some people on your team hiring people that disagree with you, right? And having somebody, I think it was when you were visiting a team, you had an example of somebody was like, "Listen, Rich, you're bombing," right? Like it was like, or something of that context. But your human that worked with you and for you felt confident enough that that feedback
Yep.
would be well received. So tell me a little bit because that's you lead with that. That's the first section you jumped
Hmm.
into, and I think that that's kind of that's a basis point to like really start. So tell me about
Yeah.
that section and kind of like what resonated with you and why you got that.
Yeah, I mean, look, so important. And there's so many things that tie into leadership and tie into courage. I mean, you got to have intent, good intent. And by the way,
Yeah,
intent is both ways.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's received, but it's also given. But it's that baseline. I mean, when I hire people and they're going to report to me, and it's like we're at offer. I'll say, listen, and I say this still today. If you're gonna, if you know, before you accept this job, you need to understand how I see our relationship. First of all, it's
Mm,
two-way. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna define success together, right? And I'm gonna drive you every day to that level, to that success. If you meander off path even a little bit, I'm gonna nudge you back on. And I'm going to do that because remember that my entire goal is I see myself as your career coach.
mm,
I need to get you to that North Star in the most straight, direct way possible.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it because I woke up and decided to be cranky and I just want to be a butthead and I want to, annoy you.
yeah.
I'm doing it because I look at this as a commitment that I'm making to us
Yeah.
for you to be
Yeah.
successful. With that said, it's two-way.
Yeah.
I am far from perfect. I mean, if you don't believe me, talk to my wife. I mean, it's not even close. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I am, and I'm a knucklehead. I claimed that earlier, and I'm probably not paying attention.
Mm,
Okay. So if at any moment that you feel like we're missing something, it's up to you to nudge me back on,
mm,
the path to giving you what you need to be successful. I say this often is I'll say, look, if I have an impression as your leader that you are not doing your job, that is not my fault. That's yours. I
yeah.
didn't wake up and choose that impression. I'm
Mm,
getting it by whatever means
Right.
that I
yeah.
have access, and you're giving that to me. Now, if I am wrong, awesome, make it obvious, right?
Yeah.
If I am right, no problem. Let's coach you back up, nudge you back on path, and we'll be in a good spot. But it's
Yeah.
just a two-way. It's got to
Yeah.
work that way.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
I just set the, I just kind of like I set the pin to say, here's how we go forward, and we're going to
Hmm.
run off of this axle, right?
Hmm.
Because this is going to be the pivot point that's going to be the most successful for you to be successful. And
Yeah.
there have been many, many times along the way that I have made mistakes where I have said something that I thought was awfully clever, or I have said things that have just been completely wrong.
Yeah.
But I've owned it. But I can only own it if someone can tell me that
Yes.
I'm not landing right. To the example
Yeah.
that you used, earlier, Paul, is yeah, there have been. I mean, I talk about it in the book. I mean, one of my lowest moments was
Mm,
where I really felt like I was supporting my team that had worked very, very hard in a very highly exposed, kind of accessible, in view project. And I unintentionally, absolutely cut the legs out from underneath them.
yeah.
And I didn't know that, but I had a lieutenant, a person that I really believed in, who kind of pulled me aside and said, "Hey, listen, you don't even know that you did this, but you demolished your entire team in front of all
Jeez.
of the leadership."
Yeah.
And it was the
Mm.
worst. And so
Yeah.
I then had to go back in front of the entire group and say, "Hey, you know what? I made a mistake. That's not
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
intended. Here's what I meant to say."
Yeah.
And I just kind of owned it. And
Yeah.
so, that's wrapped, but with intent, it's wrapped in
Yes.
communication, it's level
Yeah.
setting, it's communication, it's information, and it's having the confidence, right, to redirect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think as a leader, like being able to show that you can take that feedback, because you're going to get one chance to actually show
Yeah,
that you can
Yeah.
take that feedback. Because if you shut it down, the word spreads, and now you've lost that ability to get
Yeah.
that two-way communication. And that's something I had to learn early on. And I had some wonderful, lieutenants that worked for me that, kind of put me in my place. And I was just like, oh, yeah, it's a gut check, but at the end of the day, it's how you
Yeah.
just have to accept it and just be okay being wrong, because we're not
yeah,
right all the time, and you're
yeah.
not supposed to be right all the time. You shouldn't be
No,
right all
God,
the
that'd
time.
be terrible to be right all the time. That's a lot of
Horrible.
pressure to be right all the
Yeah, that'd be
time.
Yeah,
horrible. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean, one thing that we talked about earlier before coming on here is part of your book is coaching and mentoring, obviously revolved around sports and leadership
yeah,
and throughout your career. But something kind of really stood out to me in that section. I believe it's chapter 10, where you talk about you wish more companies would hire for attitude and train for skill. And I
yeah,
know even on the desk, talking to hiring managers that they're like, you must have, but once you start kind of drilling down,
Mm.
you can kind of get to something that's not a purple squirrel or,
Yeah.
3 people in that will only be able to do that job. But how has that mentality helped you, your teams, just in general
Yeah.
from your perspective?
Yeah, so look, great question, and I think it's again another one of those where we all get that right on in a quiz, right?
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
just
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
when you're at the moment, you're like, you can't help yourself. You're like, well, yeah, I want an attitude, but I also want 3 years of experience, and I want,
Yeah.
all of a
Yeah.
sudden. There is a time and there's a place for specific example or a specific criteria that
Yeah.
are important. Very technical jobs for
Yep.
sure.
Sure.
I'm not wanting, my doctor to have like a great attitude and
Yes.
no skill,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Doctor,
Yeah.
big one. I was thinking doctor.
Sure.
Yeah. Want to
Yeah,
see that little
Yeah.
pilot,
like thing on there. Yeah.
pilot, yeah.
Pilot, I was gonna say
Yeah, the
pilot.
plane went down, but the guy was
Was
terribly
oh, he was
funny.
so positive about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was like really amazing. Not the right
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But most of the roles, I mean, look, I've been in the recruitment space in a lot of different varieties and a lot of different areas, and whether it's on the hiring side or on the placement side or on the
Hmm.
candidate side for that matter. And more times than not, the attitude makes everything. And
Yeah.
again, not in the technical world, but
Sure.
if I have seen examples of people that if you looked at their resume, not that they're hoppy, that becomes a problem.
Sure.
But if you look at their resume, you're like, why are they good? It makes no sense. The guy was
Hmm.
a soccer coach before, and now he's like a top recruiter, right?
Yeah.
So like, what translated there? Or they were a waiter, or they were a bartender, or it's
Yeah.
just, it's that ability, and it becomes very difficult, but it's that ability to unlock, really who the person is,
Hmm.
and how do you set that pilot light, how do you light it and get them put on a path where they can be successful?
Yeah.
When you've got somebody with a great attitude and a can-do, kind of approach and a, oodles of discretionary effort and adaptable and competitive. I mean, look, especially in this space, in many
Yeah.
of the roles, they can be successful. I mean, I,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you do not have to be tall, and you do not have to be smart, and you don't have to be fast, right?
Hmm.
And for sure, you don't have to have hair to be successful in this space, right?
Right.
It's attitude, it's adaptability, it's competitive, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's likability for the
Yeah.
most part.
Yeah.
Because if people want to be around you, they'll help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
What
love
do
it.
you think companies like struggle to make that kind of jump and
Yeah, they
not, I mean,
rely they
obviously,
get fixated on skills, and they will
yes.
literally just dive into that skill. And
Yeah.
I mean, we all know that they usually fire somebody not for their skill set, it's for their attitude, right? Or
Yeah.
something else, which is what we didn't look for. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, I think it's the fallback is they don't have confidence in themselves of being a judge,
Hmm.
kind
Mm,
of someone that can judge talent, you
Yeah.
know?
yeah.
So I think that when you see people that fall on assessments as kind of like the go, no go,
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
process that's the go, no go, um, because look, you're placing bets on people. And look, there have been many, many times where I placed bets on people that were sure things that
For
they
sure.
just didn't pan out.
Yeah.
The timing wasn't right or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just think that people default to the comfort of a process or a set of criteria,
Mm,
Yeah.
hmm.
and they don't really look at themselves as or look at that particular candidate
Yeah.
for who that candidate really is or what their
Yeah.
passions are or how they might fit in.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's great.
I love it. So obviously the book is, we could talk about the book all day because I mean, I definitely suggest somebody pick it up and read it because there's so many nuggets
Yeah.
in there that what's
Yeah.
funny is I listen to it. There are things that I've been taught by working with you and through people that have
Yeah.
worked with you, and just the culture that was with the Agilon group really, I think, embraced a lot of these
Yeah.
mental like leadership skill sets. But if you were going to give me, this is for the people that are leaders out there, no matter where, like, what was the best piece of leadership advice? I'm sure there's a lot, but something that just resonates with you that you received, and maybe the worst. You don't have to use names. That's okay.
Well, I mean, if I'm to answer that, is like, what do I need in a leader
Mm.
Hmm.
myself? right? I mean, I feel like, so look, if they're authentic and they're transparent,
Yeah.
right? And they really care about me, then I can latch on to someone that can help me do that, right? I feel like I
Mm.
can
Yeah.
contribute to that relationship.
Yeah.
I remember, and I talk about it in the book. I remember the very first time I became a manager, I got my first door, which is amazing.
Oh yeah. I remember. You could close it.
Schaumburg, Illinois. Now, but here was the funny thing: is the office was a triangle, so I had to like step over the desk to be able to open the door. So it was a little bit. So it was still
So a corner
Still was
office.
corner office.
still a door, still a door. One of the very first days, my boss, we're going through a bit of stuff, and she said to me, and it was a brand, a startup branch. There were just three of us.
Yeah.
So it's me, manager, a sales guy, and then a recruiter, staffing manager. And she said, "Listen, if anybody ever asks you a question that you don't know, put them on hold, or act like you forgot to go do something. Walk out of the room, call me, I'll give you the answer."
Mm.
I'm like, I'm not ever going to do that because my job is not to have the answer. My job is to
Yeah.
get the answer. If I don't have it,
Yeah.
I got to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as I grow up and I have bigger teams, I need to ensure that those people that
Mm.
are at my table can have those answers that I don't have. I said, along down the road,
Hmm.
as I've become the head of HR for a really big region,
Hmm.
and I'm in the interview, I'm like, look, I don't know anything about benefits. I mean, if I am charged with benefit plans for this organization, we are in trouble.
We are going down.
We're
Yeah.
going to have some big issues. Now, my job is to go find someone that can do
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think that, the best advice is just be authentic, right?
Yeah.
I
Mm.
mean, just be yourself and accept the answer, "I don't know, but I'll get it for you," as
Yeah.
something that's
Hmm.
completely accessible, or that
Yeah.
is it's acceptable.
And something that you do, which I think is a great piece of leadership advice, is hire for your, I say deficiencies, but your blind spots, right? To your point,
Hmm.
it's like
Sure.
hire, like you got to know your blind spots and what you're not good at, i.e.,
Yeah.
benefits, and then hire somebody that's going to be your go-to and your trusted
Yep.
advisor there. And that's so,
Yeah.
Yep.
again, you don't have to know everything as a leader. You shouldn't,
Well,
right? And
and
yeah,
you don't want everybody, Paul, to be the same person, right?
totally. We got
Yeah.
a yes.
And
Everybody
so,
says yes in the room. Problem.
yeah, I mean, it's horrible. We talk
Yeah.
about that in the book too, called Management Land. But you
Yeah.
just want people that are going to challenge you. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there have been people at my table that I can say with confidence that they just didn't like me.
Yeah.
But they
But that's
respected
okay.
me and it
Yeah.
worked out okay. It was totally
Yeah.
fine. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
I've had a few of those too. I look back, I'm like, they didn't really like me, but we got a lot done together,
Yep.
and it worked well.
And I
Yeah,
think if I look at the bad advice, or I look at the bad leaders, people that are just in it for themselves and they were completely fake because they were trying to
yeah,
grow themselves more than they were trying to grow the team.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, you
I love
definitely
it.
see that a ton in at least our industry. I'm sure it's very
Yep.
similar in other areas, but
Yeah,
which kind of leads me to the next one because I mean, you've been in this industry for so long. You started, as a staffing manager at
yeah,
Robert
staff
Half.
HR. Yeah.
So it's like, what advice would you give, knowing everything that you know now, what advice would you give young Rich back as a staffing manager? Um, uh, and what would that advice be?
Yeah.
It's a great question. I was saying, so my son just graduated college on
Hmm.
Friday last week. And so we
Oh,
were talking.
congrats.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you. I know
huge.
it's like a freaking miracle. Luckily he got it from his mom. But we just talked about he's at this moment where it's, the power of the network, right?
Mm.
And
Mm,
the need of help. And that's one thing that, I will say that as my time at Adecco, that last 5 years at Adecco, really like 10, is we're just entrenched. I mean, we're just in it, and every day it's full on and it's full day. And we're not thinking about anybody who's out of view, right? We're not thinking
Mm.
hmm.
about people that are kind of in your network that you've lost touch with.
Yeah.
I just think that if my advice, and I say this to a lot of people, and I think it kind of I think it's relevant, is everything is about, I think, you got to establish relationships and you got to go find advocates.
Yeah.
I mean, you want people saying your name when you're not around in a positive way.
Yeah.
And, to do that is you have to treat people as individuals, right? You need to authentically get to know them. You need to
Mm-hmm.
give them more than you take, right? And you need to understand how they define value and how can you contribute to their results in whatever it is that they are doing. If
Yeah.
you can do those things, then you'll put yourself in a situation that you'll be given more opportunities to
Yeah.
either grow up or grow out,
Yeah.
because you can't singularly do it all on your own,
Yeah.
and you cannot be so kind of internally focused. You have to be outwardly focused. You just have to trust that, again,
Yeah.
through those relationships and through the value and the connection in the relationship, that you're just giving yourself that opportunity for growth and for
Yeah.
advancement.
Yeah.
I love it. I know that I tell you what, I'm taking notes here again because I think of some of the things you say, it just brings me back. And that's why I love these conversations, because it reminds me of this, of what makes, what drives us as leaders. And I
Yeah.
really appreciate you sharing with us all. And again, the book it's good. And I honestly, there's some areas I want to go back, some areas I didn't read as into
Yeah.
depth. And so I'm really excited to continue because it is something to refer back on. I don't think it's a one read. I think
Definitely
I mean,
not.
there's highlights I've written on it. I'm sorry I
Yes.
destroyed it, but I really appreciate the book. I did want to
Well, and
ask,
Paul,
I'm sorry,
I
yeah,
think to that, and I appreciate it just real fast, is I
yeah,
appreciate you saying that because what we didn't want to do is create a model. We didn't want to create acronyms. We
Yeah.
didn't want to create a pyramid or like a
yeah.
template or like a 9 box or like you know, we just
All the
wanted to be
solutions,
like,
yeah.
yeah, we just wanted to be like we were at a bar having a beer or at a Starbucks having a
Yeah.
coffee and just having a
Yeah,
discussion on the 2 or 3 things that at any level and that at any tenure that you might be able to apply.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, and it's huge. I mean, like as I'm reading through it, it just there's so many things that it reminiscent. You go back, you think about things. So it was so well done, and I definitely appreciate
Yeah.
you
Thank you.
sharing that with us. A little bit of a tangent. I do want to talk about. We always talk about our show AI, and because it is,
Yep.
I mean, it's a passion project of mine. I think it's something that we talk about the grind and where as recruiters we had 100 dials. I mean, here's the phone book. Here's
Yeah.
your area codes. Right, go for it. And there's so many things AI can do, and I find that some companies are really fast to adopt it, and other companies are being somewhat slow. What's your take on kind of like AI and like where you think why companies need to adopt it now, where there's some concern, and maybe what it should never replace, right? Or not for the short term anyway.
Yeah. So look, I use it almost every day,
Yeah.
Yeah.
every day. And I mean, look, I think if I think for those who don't adopt it or for those who are against it, is they don't understand it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that it's going to replace thinking,
No.
because the secret to AI are the prompts. You need to like thoughtfully
Hmm.
Yeah.
feed prompts to get to a good solution. But I think AI it's a time saver. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I've talked to people who are attorneys, right? Who have said, look, I can go get a brief. I could go get 70% of a brief written so that I don't have to start from nothing, right?
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Whether it's comp plans, excuse me, or job descriptions, or
Yeah.
emails, or posts, or whatever, it can save a tremendous amount of time because
Hmm.
it just gets you started,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I think it gets you in the right framework.
Yeah.
And it's super important. And I look at the busyness of the desk in a
Mm.
recruiting world,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? It's the the secret to a submittal is that it's like a diminishing return for those econ classes from way back.
Yeah.
Is in a submittal, it's only the right amount. It's the exact amount of stuff in a
Yeah.
profile that says yes.
It's just, uh-huh.
No, nothing more than that,
Yeah.
right? And being able to efficiently get from interview through notes to a submittal
Hmm.
in a very fast way by using some version of AI is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
it's life
yeah.
saving.
And I mean, even now it can even do remember the 100 dials we had to do to get people on the phone? It could pre-screen people. So that's the stuff and now
Yeah,
you're talking to people. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much that it can do. And
yeah,
I'm just,
it's amazing.
so what do you think it will never replace in recruiting? Well, for the short term.
Never replacing recruiting.
Yeah. Like what's the
Well,
one?
I think I mean, look, I am really big on connection.
Hmm.
And I think that that's important. And I listen, I'm old, as it's been very well documented on this call.
Good job,
We just
Paul.
said a lot.
Yeah, yeah. It, I need to hear somebody's voice to be able to connect to it. And
Yeah.
I think that that's
Yes.
important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and that's what AI lets you do. Like, even with the new iPhone upgrade, now you can record calls, which is just, I work off my phone, so it's even
Yeah,
better.
yeah.
And you don't have to worry about, wait, did I hear that right? Is that what they said? You can literally just listen and actually enjoy the conversation and actually get to know the people
And
through
then go back to
some
your
of that.
notes.
Yeah. And then go back to
Amazing.
my notes. And then, yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's just, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
Rich, you've shared so much. Thank you so much. You know, we've talked a lot about your book, your background, your history, but what about you personally? So we're gonna set
yeah.
up our
Oh boy.
fast four
Here we go.
lightning round. I promise they're
And he
not
wouldn't even let
super
us
hard.
prep him on the questions.
I
So this
know.
is brand new
He's
for him.
like,
He's brave.
just give it to me. So, what's your guilty pleasure to decompress after a day in the world of staffing?
Well, I mean, look, corny answer.
Of course,
Yes.
that's fine.
I mean, there is nothing that I mean at the stage of my life. So I have three kids in college, one out now, so I've got two more in college. Okay, so we're empty nesters, and there's nothing better after a long day of just kind of sitting beside my wife, watching
Mm,
television and enjoying her presence.
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I mean, we're not big, we don't like cook elaborate meals on a regular basis, and we're not drinkers. So it's just, kind of the presence of someone that makes me feel comfortable and gives me
Yeah,
confidence. That is everything.
I
that's
love
awesome.
it.
How long have you guys been married for?
30 years in May.
Oh,
Wow,
wow.
congratulations.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
So
you're
my
starting
life is
recruiting and then
basically my
yeah.
marriage and then recruiting. So that's basically it.
Perfect.
Well, let's talk about three other questions. The second one, we talked TV. So this as well. What is the last show you binge watched and couldn't get enough of?
How I Met Your Mother.
Oh, it's so
Yes.
good. Have you seen
So
the new spin-off? Have you seen that at
no,
all? Okay.
no.
I kind of didn't get into it. It was like,
How
it's
I
not
Met
the
Your
same.
Mother.
Yeah,
My
Love it.
son, my
it's a good
middle
one.
son has been begging me to watch it. And so I've been traveling a lot, so I've only gotten into it now. I'm almost to the final season, but
It's a good
it's a very
one.
clever show, and more times than not, I find myself laughing out loud at least once during one of the episodes.
It's so
I love
good.
it.
It's like an
Yeah,
easy watch,
yeah,
fun. Yes. Yeah,
yeah,
it can
yeah,
definitely yeah, relax you a bit. What
Love
yeah.
it.
about random stuff that's currently living on your nightstand?
Well, I have a stack of books that by this stage, I have no intention of reading.
Same.
I have those too. Good
It's just,
intentions. Good intentions.
I
I
Good
put
mean,
them in.
no,
intentions.
by this moment, I don't even know who I'm trying to impress because I'm kind of the only one that sees it. It's me and my wife, and it's like I just from time to time I'll move it and kind of dust around it and move it
Yeah.
kind of back over. But
Yeah.
Yep.
truly I have the same books on there. I don't even know what the books are anymore. So I bet they've been there for. There's about 10 or 12 of them that have just been the same damn ones for forever.
Yeah, you'll get
You
to them
just
Yeah.
one
dust
day.
them up
One day.
and yeah.
I believe.
Zero. And
Uh,
here's the funny thing is
Decoration.
here's the funny is if I'm going to read a book. And by the way, since those books have been on my nightstand, I have actually purchased books on Audible,
yeah. Oh, Audible is
and
the way to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
but none of them are those books that are on my nightstand. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
That's
an
funny.
Audible guy myself. Yes, I
I know
love it.
Spotify, if you have to like your account, like you can
Yeah.
listen to a bunch of books on there. That's actually how I listen to most
Yeah.
of the books. I only
Yeah.
listen to the books that are on there. Anything outside of that, I'm like,
I'm out. Well,
Which,
last
by the
What
way,
is
we're about to release an Audible
Audible.
version.
Are
Oh,
you reading it?
good.
Are you reading it?
No,
Oh,
we
Yeah,
have
who's
Matthew McConaughey. He's going to read it for us. Yeah.
is he? Oh my
That's
God.
he's the best voice.
He's like, no, it's not.
No.
That would have been really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I can't
Oh
wait
my-
for that. You want to ask the last question, Mary?
Yes. So, last question. What's one thing that's filling your heart with gratitude today, Rich?
'Tis the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's family. It's always family. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got
Yeah.
all five of us are home now just for the holidays. And I was saying to
Yes.
my wife, so my son graduated from Florida State last Friday, and my son flew in from Purdue to meet us unexpectedly that night. So it was a
Wow.
surprise, which is awesome. And my daughter's a
Wow.
freshman at Ole Miss. And, we're sitting at this table and you've got these three adults and you're having a grown-up discussion and everyone is having a great time.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a moment that kind of dawned on me that, it's like we created from nothing these three people who are,
Yeah.
they're smart and they're beautiful and they're funny and they're engaging and they've got their entire life ahead of them. And I just couldn't be more proud of that. And I mean, I know
Yeah.
that that's kind of cliche, but it's just,
No, that's the stuff
your
that,
life,
yeah.
it's just, that's it. All anything matters is
Yeah.
experiences and relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. In the
We don't
end.
we don't live to work, we work to live, and you got to remember
Yeah.
that. So, well, Rich,
So,
I tell you what, I love so much having
This
you
was
on
a
our
good
show
one.
today. This was so good, and I can't wait for people to get so many nuggets, not only from this
Yeah.
conversation, but from your book as well.
Yes.
And
Get
we
the
hope.
book Relentless with Rich
Yeah.
Thompson. Here it
Yes,
is.
absolutely. Available on Amazon. I think I have mine in a day and a half. Super easy
Yes.
to
Yeah.
get. So,
Yes,
but,
Amazon.
Rich, thank you so much.
Hey, listen, I just checked the Vegas board and the over under on likes of this podcast is 17. So I'm excited.
Well, I can't wait. Well, Rich, thank you so much. I know people will love it. And again, if you guys like this, don't forget to smash that like button,
Yes.
share it.
Like
but
us, follow us. Yes,
thank you
please.
again for showing up today.
Thanks a lot,
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you.